Good Friday afternoon to you, Evangel. Hope you've had a great week and looking forward to a great weekend. It's late Friday afternoon here, winding down a little bit, sitting on the front porch, and as usual, doing some thinking about the church. Getting ready for this Sunday. Looking forward to turning back to 1 Timothy chapter 2 again, talking about evangelistic praying. What does it mean to pray for the gospel? Going to talk this week about the second half of that passage we started last week. It's got a lot of stuff in there about Jesus. Now, one God and one mediator between God and men, the man Christ Jesus, who gave himself a ransom for all. Hope you plan on being there as we talk about the great gospel and how God uses prayer to work his gospel, and how God uses the communication of his gospel. And so I hope you will plan on being there Sunday. In light of that, I want to talk just a few minutes today in this front porch chat about the church. The doctrine of ecclesiology is kind of the big word we use for it, but what does it mean to be the church? At the heart of it, the church is an assembly of people. You know, today one of the common phrases you hear among church-type people is we need to go be the church. And usually what people mean when they say be the church, they mean let's go out and live as Christians in the community. And I totally agree it's a great thing to do. We should absolutely go and live as Christians in the community. One of the weird things, though, is how many people use the phrase be the church when what they really mean is don't be the church. You see, here's the difference. To be the church means to assemble. The church is assembly. It's a group of people who get together. And when they see be the church, what they actually mean is leave the assembly and go be a Christian in your neighborhood. Go be a Christian with your co-workers. Go be a Christian with needy people. All those things are good and is part of what it means to be a Christian. But the particular focus of the church is on the assembly of it. Now, in this past couple of months, as we've gone through this pandemic, we've talked a lot about the church. And I've tried to remind us and encourage us that our online church services aren't really church because we're not assembling. You're in your house. I'm in the church building, usually is where I was. Now, other people in their houses, we're all kind of in separate places. And my guess is that all of you understand that Christmas dinner is just not the same when you're FaceTiming with people. You have your dinner at your house, and your grandkids are having their dinner at their house, or grandma's having her dinner at her house, and you're kind of on the computer. It's just not the same as being in the same place. And when you understand that principle, you understand why online church isn't really a good substitute for church. It's not assembly. We're not together. And one of the things that I love about the church and being a part of Evangel is so many great people who have assembled for years. That some of you are brand new. You've come in the last 6 months or a year. We love having you there and hope you'll continue to be a part of it and grow with us and follow Christ with us at Evangel. Some of you have been there for decades. Some of you have been at Evangel longer than I've been alive, and I think it's a great thing. We're standing on the heritage and on the shoulders of so many faithful people who have continued to assemble faithfully. So we've gone through this past couple months. I know there's really a spectrum of people. If you can imagine the spectrum, on one end of the spectrum way over here is a group of people who think that we should have never stopped meeting. When the church stopped meeting, we were given into fear. We were given into orders from the government. We were doing all these different things. We were wrong. We should have never stopped meeting. I know there's some of you out there who are like that. I know on the other end of that spectrum, there are those who think we should not be meeting now. You think by gathering in that parking lot and getting people together, you think we're taking a chance on exposing people to illness and to sickness. And of course, from one end to the other, it looks like you're miles and miles and miles apart. And in fact, maybe you're sitting there, if I can say this out of a heart of pastoral care and concern, maybe you're sitting there looking in judgment on those on the other end of the spectrum who can't imagine that there's somebody who's so unloving as to want to meet together even in the parking lot. And maybe you're one of those on the end of the spectrum who's looking at the other and saying, you can't believe there's somebody who's living in so much fear that they're willing to not meet together as a church. And maybe you're in the middle of that spectrum and you think, well, we should meet, but if we're not, I'll do whatever the church does. I know there's people all over that spectrum. Here's what I want to say to you today, just by way of encouragement. If you're on the end of the spectrum that's not yet comfortable meeting together, to you I'd say keep watching from home. Keep tuning in. Sing there in your living room or your office or wherever it is that you happen to be at home. But I hope that this time apart creates in you a longing to be back with the body. Don't let this time drive you away from the body. Here's my other encouragement to you. Don't look down on those who see it differently than you do. Don't assume that they're unloving or uncaring about the virus simply because they're willing to come and meet in the parking lot with us. Don't give in to that. But realize the church is an assembly, and I hope that one day you'll reassemble with us when you're comfortable with it and we're able to do things a little bit different. I hope you'll assemble again with us. I hope you miss it right now. For those of you on the other end of the spectrum who say, we should have never stopped meeting. We gave into fear. We gave into this political stuff. We should have never done that. Here's what I'd say to you. Understand that there were a lot of difficult decisions to be made, and we tried to make them with the best wisdom possible. We tried to read the best experts we could. We tried to get as much understanding as we could, and as best as a pastoral heart as I have, and pastoral care and concern and love, I don't think we're operating in some kind of unbiblical fear. There was an avenue in which we, all of us in our society, even the experts didn't know. We saw, yeah, sure, they turned out to be wrong about some things here or there, and some of us see that in a different way than others do. But we didn't stop meeting because we were scared. We wanted to do what was best for public health, and we wanted to do what was best for the reputation of the community. I know some of you, you're like, man, I'm not even coming back right now because you're still outside. It's not real church till you get inside the building. And I'll challenge you on that, because remember, the Bible doesn't define the church as the size of the room or the arrangement of the pews, whether you meet inside, under shelter, or outside. Many times through history, churches all over the world have met outside. In fact, some of them still do today in various parts of the world. They don't have a building. They'll meet under the big oak tree over there in the shade, kind of like we do, in fact, as long as there's enough shade. Many of you get there early enough to get the shade. Let me encourage you to remember that if you're sitting out these services simply because they're not in the building, can I challenge you on that? With the heart of a pastor, can I challenge you to rethink that? Don't sit out simply because we're not in the room you would like to be in. The church is an assembly of people, no matter where it meets. Maybe there's even some of you considering going to another church right now, like, hey, if my church doesn't do what I want it to do, I'm going to go find a church that will. And here's my challenge to you. I think that may be a little bit of consumerism, that people are looking at the church like, hey, the church is here to give me what I want, to meet at the times I want and do everything I want. And if this church doesn't do it, I'll go find a church that does. Can I challenge you to remember what church membership is all about? Somebody asked me last week, I mentioned the membership class, and during the service that we're resuming that, and somebody asked me, hey, tell me about membership. I said, membership is basically this. Membership is a formal commitment that you're telling us that we can count on you, that you've chosen, out of all the churches out there, you've chosen this church to worship with. You've chosen this church to love. You've chosen this church to serve with. It's just a promise. You can count on me. Let me encourage you during this time, don't abandon that commitment simply because we're not doing exactly the way you think we should. Let me encourage you to remember, you made a promise and you made a commitment. Listen, I think there are good reasons to leave a church. I don't think this is one of them. All right. And if somebody's coming to our church saying, hey, I'm leaving my church and coming to yours because you guys are meeting, our church is still doing online, you know what I'm going to say to them? I'm going to say, listen, I would question you. I think you ought to go back. I think you ought to stick with your church right now, unless there's some other reason. Simply your church not restarting the way you think it should is not a good reason to look for another church. Be careful about that consumer mindset that says, I'm going to get what I want out of church. I don't care about anything else. Church is about the body of people. Church is not about the self. I'm not an evangel for my self-fulfillment. I love evangel. I love the people at evangel. I love working with you guys. I love serving with you. And I say that intentionally. Yeah, I'm the pastor. I'm the one with the microphone. I'm the one with a voice, but I'm working with you. I'm serving with you, and I love that. And let me encourage you, if you're one of those on that end of the spectrum that says, we should be meeting inside the building right now, let me encourage you, remember, it's about the body, not about self. And if you're one of those that say, hey, I'm going to go find a church that'll give me what I want, be careful. Be careful that you don't turn it into a consumeristic mindset. I hope very soon to be back to sort of our regular schedule of services. I hope that happens sooner rather than later. We're still trying to be as wise as we can about it. Here's one new step we're taking this week. We have decided, for a couple different reasons, we're going to open the fellowship hall up and live stream the service inside the fellowship hall. Now, there are two reasons we're going to do this. One is because of heat. It's going to be hot again this week. It's supposed to be headed towards 90 at some time. It'll be early. We're starting at 9, so we'll miss some of that. But those of you who say, man, it's just too hot outside, even at 9 o'clock in the morning, the upper fellowship hall is going to be open. The air conditioning is going to be on. And when I was in there yesterday, it works. I was sitting there, man, that's cold. That's feeling good. Remember, I'm going to be preaching outside. inside. We're going to live stream the service up on the big screen, and we'll have chairs set up in there, and you can sit with your family. You can be socially distanced from others, and that's the second thing. It's for those who want to be teed. It's also for those who believe we should wear masks. If you go in the upper fellowship hall, we're going to require masks. Now, we're not going to have policemen with billy clubs, but we're going to have greeters, great people, greeters who are going to stand at the door. And if you don't have a mask, we're going to ask you not to go inside. So if you want to come, bring a mask, sit inside. So really, if you're one of those things, man, I'd love to go to church, but I think we should require masks. The upper fellowship hall will be open, and masks will be required for anybody who goes in there. Again, you're not required to go in there. We're not going to look down on those who wear masks. And if anybody does look down on you, not because they're taller than you, but because they're judging you, you let me know, and we'll talk to them about it. We want to encourage people. Listen, love people who see it differently than you do. I'm saying at both ends of the spectrum. If you're one of those who say, man, I can't believe you guys are meeting outside. That's so dangerous. You can't be doing that. Let me encourage you, extend some grace to those who disagree. If you're one of those on the other end who are saying, man, I can't believe we ever stopped meeting to begin with, let me encourage you, show some grace to those who disagree. And at the end of the day, my goal for our church has been to maintain unity in the midst of a diversity of views. I realize that we don't all see the same thing and see it the same way. I got to confess to you, from day to day, my mind changes, and thinking, well, which article did I read today that makes me think one way or the other? We're trying to do what's best for the congregation and best for the testimony of our Lord Jesus Christ, and I hope you'll work together with us in that. Remember, church is about the assembly. Church is about the body. It's not about the self. Let this time of absence, if you're still staying away, we love you, and we're not going to put pressure on you to come back, but as soon as you're able to, I hope you'll reassemble with us. If you're one of those who's sitting out saying, man, we got to be meeting in the auditorium, or we got to be doing this or that, I'm going to find someplace else. Let me encourage you, don't forget the commitment you made to membership at the body of Evangel. Yeah, there's a lot of churches out there you could go to, but you chose this one. Stick with us, and let's worship together. Let's love each other. Let's serve together as we pursue the Lord Jesus Christ and the good of his gospel in this community. I look forward to seeing you Sunday morning. For those of you that are there on Sunday, I hope looking forward to seeing you there. For those of you who are watching from home, I'll look forward to you seeing me and seeing our music team and the guys and ladies leading us in music. I look forward to it. Hopefully we'll have a great week together. Look for an email coming this afternoon. You should have already gotten it by now about the Sunday service and some things going on. Don't forget the kids class, kindergarten through second grade, and we'll have that. Sign up for that online. Joan Jubinville does a great job with that. So if you have kids in that age group and you want to take advantage of that, please do so. Until Sunday, hope you have a great rest of the weekend. Look forward to seeing you Sunday morning at 9 o'clock.